Hello and welcome to this special show, the Creatress Rising Summit. Welcome everybody. And for today's show, for right now, we have Amit Sahnand here. She is the Untamed Herbalist and an incredible embodiment coach. Now, when I was first looking for speakers to grace us with their presence on this summit, I was trolling the internet. I was talking to different friends. I was looking at Instagram, and this one very special Instagram channel, I think you call it, I don't even know, popped up. And Amrit is just got such a beautiful presence, and I was really excited to invite her and for her to say yes to joining me on this summit. And if you get the chance, go and watch her Instagram channel. We'll post links below this video because it is just inspirational and so vibrant and full of life. And she just moves. She really knows how to shake her booty on the camera, and I'm sure off the camera as well. But today we're going to talk to Amrit all about untaming ourselves, and I feel like that's a perfect place to start our summit. So welcome, Amrit. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Great. So Amrit, you are a herbalist and yes, you are a transformational and embodiment coach. Tell us how you got started on this journey. Where did it all begin for you?
It's been a long journey. So my love for plants and herbs started when I was younger, probably in my teens. I grew up in a home that had a lot of Ayurvedic practices and a very holistic based way of living. And so I started studying Ayurveda when I was probably about 14 years old, and integrated a lot of those practices into my life. And then I, went to school. I actually have my degree in voice performance. I sang opera professionally for quite some time. And it was my mid to late 20s. I was in a really unhealthy, unhappy place in my life. And I started noticing that coffee was making me feel like really anxious, but I love coffee. I lived in Italy. Coffee is like such a ritual for me. And it's not just about, this brown bean water. It had this whole energy for me, and I wasn't willing to give it up. So I started researching at the time. That's when bulletproof coffee was really starting to trend. And so I started researching what I could do to my coffee to help my body metabolize it so that it could serve me and not take energy away from me, because I already just had none. And so I started researching herbs and adaptogens that I could add to my coffee that would help to support my body, mind, and spirit. And then adding fat to it so that it doesn't hit my adrenals real fast and cause me to have anxiety. And that became a ritual in the morning, and became sometimes, in most days for a long period of time, the only moment of peace and connection that I had to myself throughout the day. And a couple years later, people started being like, you seem so knowledgeable on this stuff. Have you thought about becoming a coach, or actually becoming an herbalist or teaching workshops? So I started teaching workshops around Portland. Actually, I taught adaptogenic latte workshops and herbal latte workshops to teach people both about the power of creating a morning ritual and the impact that has on your life and on your day-to-day, as well as about these amazing herbs that can help support your body and your hormones and your nervous system. And I had terrible, and I still deal with it today, imposter syndrome. So I went and got my holistic health coach license. And since then, I've also gotten certified as an herbalist. And I had a feminine movement certification as well, a somatic feminine movement certification. So I have all these things. But I wouldn't say that my journey of untaming and getting into what I do now didn't start until about 3 years ago now, almost. I left the marriage that I was in and started to heal from a lifetime of trauma. And in that healing, realized I had formed myself to fit these forms that other people wanted me to be or thought that I was. And I had no idea who I was. And so it was time for me to take myself out of all these boxes that I had put myself in or that other people had put me in, because I didn't even know if that box fit me anymore or ever fit me. And so that's kind of like the very shortened version of how I started. And then I started coaching people. So
yeah, which is such a natural progression, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this untaming, I really want to go into this a little bit more, because I feel like it really is the basis of where we're going with not just this summit, but with the next 8 summits as well, is really untaming and unlocking all of those layers within us that say that we can't dance, or we can't be healthy, or we can't have the relationship that we desire, you know? And so I'd love for you to share with us your process of untaming and, you know, the beautiful bits and the ugly bits and all, you know, everything in between, because I know it's not just a straightforward process and everybody's process is different.
It's going to look different for everybody, and it's messy. And there's beauty in the mess, but ultimately, like, it's messy. And I would say, you know, the first like light of seeing what was inside of me and what I was capable of. And I still think I don't have like a full awareness of, like, just like we don't see our full potential. Right.
Yeah.
It happened like, so 2019 was the year from hell. For so many, so 2020 was the year from hell for so many people, but mine accelerated in 2019. That was when my life just kind of like fell apart. And I realized that I was in a relationship with somebody who was never going to do the work. And I'd also fallen in love with a person for their potential and not who they were and where they were at. And, you know, and I know now I can look back and say, I know exactly why I chose that kind of relationship. I know exactly how I, you know, got there. It was what was modeled to me. It was all I knew was trauma. And so of course I was going to pick a traumatic, abusive relationship, but I knew there was a moment where I finally was like, I'm fighting against a wall that's not moving, and this is not going to change. And I've been trying this for 12 years and it's not going to change until I have to change. And it was I'd never lived alone in my life. I went straight from like parents' house to roommates to living with my ex. And so the first time in my life, I signed my own lease with my own name on it. And not too long after that was like in June of 2019, then COVID hit in March of 2020. So I didn't really have much of like time before like we had this whole other layer of things. But I think then on top of that, around the same time, about March 2020, a tell-all book came out about the community that I grew up in. And then just like hundreds and hundreds of stories came out. And so coming to the conclusions that I was like raised in a cult, and also like what that did for me and all this like religious trauma that I had. And so I started by, okay, I'm going to take all the religious art down in my home. I'm going to see what that feels like. I'm going to see what it feels like to give myself permission to not have that in my home and still know that I'm a spiritual being, even though that's not in my home. And that felt really good. And then I was like, okay, I've never really drank and I never partied because I was, you know, raised in a way that didn't leave room for that. And so here I am, 32 years old, for the first time being like, it's okay to let yourself experiment and have these things and do these things in a safe way for yourself. You're taking care of yourself. You're not making bad decisions. And so I tried that on and I was like, this doesn't really work for me, but I'm glad I had that experience. And now I can go and find my alignment for what does work for me. And then I dated for the first time in my entire life because I was 20 years old when I met my ex. And so that was a whole different challenge, but each experience, each person, each moment after the fact, even if it was hard in the moment, after the fact, realizing, okay, I figured that out in a couple weeks rather than 7 years, or I figured that out in, like a few days or just a first meeting rather than years. And so I think that the way I can encapsulate, and I'm still untaming myself, I'm still learning lessons because that's life. I think for the rest of your life, if you commit to a healing journey, you commit to untaming yourself. It's just committing to constantly, when you feel in a moment of stuckness or when you feel like you're stuck in a pattern, again, being like, where's the box walls and how can I break out of them? What am I not paying attention to that I need to free myself from here? And it's terrifying. I'm not going to lie to you. It is so terrifying.
Really
It's like, it feels like the things that you do that scare you when you are, if this resonates for anybody who has a life of just hardship and trauma, the stuff that's good for you, the stuff that you need to do is the stuff that feels like so wrong. And it doesn't feel wrong in a scary, like terrifying way. It feels like this is the opposite of what I'm used to doing. And that's why I need to do it.
There's a beauty in looking at all the things that you think are right and seeing, what would rebelling against this look like?
Exactly.
What would rebelling against this feel like? Is there another way? Just because it's what I've been told that I should do or what I feel like I should do, it doesn't mean that that's what's right for you. And so rebelling, and that's the process of untaming.
It's a part of it. Part of the untaming is the rebelling. It's the, I've never been able to wear like a low cut top because I was raised with the fact that like our aura comes from this specific place. And if we do that, then we're only sexual, like just like, like controlling patriarchal things against feminine bodies and female sexuality. And me being like, it is my body. And I have never in my whole life been able to take ownership of it. And so now I'm going to take ownership of it. Now I'm going to choose who enters it and who I share it with and how I present myself to the world, and really like unplugging, I know so many women listening are probably going to resonate. There's the amount of slut shaming that we live with in our society. And can I cuss?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So the amount of slut shaming and being able to just literally say, fuck you to that and break outside of those walls and try it on. And guess what? It might not feel right for you. It might not be the right thing for you, but at least you gave yourself permission to try something on that you were told was bad or evil or low vibration your whole entire life. And you realized that wasn't what it was, but it might not be right for you. And that's okay too.
Yeah. And either way, what it does is it strengthens the walls of your container of who you are.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because if you spent your whole life being told that this is what it should be or this is what it should look like, whether just through modeling that from your parents and your peers and all of what your environment, or whether you've actually been, verbally told that, it gives you this kind of wishy-washy container in which to live your life in, and you don't quite know who you are, I guess, in a sense, and what's yours and what's not. And when you rebel against that and you try it on and you go, yeah, actually that's so great, or no, it's not me. Either way, it strengthens the walls of your container and brings you more into your peace and your alignment, right?
100%, because, there is no growth in staying small. And at some point, you've filled that container up so much that there's no more room, and the only option is to break the lid, step into a bigger container. And religious institutions and political institutions and all of these things thrive off of keeping specifically women, but just in general, like, the reality is that patriarchy affects everybody in a negative way. It's just the feminine seems to experience it just a little bit more. Like, it's meant to keep us small, because if we learn what we're capable of, then we're not dependent on these things that we're told we have to be dependent on to live. And then there's no control.
Yeah. And without control, and all of that.
Right. Without control, then there's this perceived, and control is not even real anyways, but without this control, there's this perceived idea that, like, it's going to be mayhem. But the reality is, if we had people just stepping into their truth in the moment, and the thing is your truth can change. I am a completely different person than I was 3 years ago. I used to be terrified of the world. I used to have such a narrow view on everything. And I've learned in my own process, of course, there's inherently right and wrong, but ultimately, like, when it comes to decisions in our life, there is no such thing as right and wrong. It's just what's right or wrong for each individual in the moment.
Yeah. And in the moment is such an important part of that, because we often get so righteous. This is right, because it's what's right for me right now. But no one really knows whether that's going to be right for you in 6 months' time. Yeah. And so, you have to just give yourself permission to be right or wrong in any moment, and to be curious about whether it's always going to be right for you or not, or whether I think that curiosity piece for me was a really big part of, like, untaming myself. Is like, is that actually true? Is that really my truth, or is that just something that's been modeled or passed down?
100%. Getting curious. This is what I say: get curious, stay open, and I'm going to make, like, a blanket statement. So, like, take what resonates and leave the rest, as with everything that I say. But, like, you can't untame yourself without doing shadow work, and without doing inner child work, and without being on a healing path. And not everybody needs as severe and intensive a healing path as I do. I know that I'm fairly open. I was diagnosed with CPTSD 5 years ago. And so there's, like, an added element to my healing that not everybody has. But the healing path, because on your healing path, you learn to stay open. You learn to stay curious. You learn to unwire and rewire these things that were literally imprinted into you for you to believe who you are. And I came to a point of, like, holy crap, how much of my personality is trauma response and how much is just me at who I am. And the reality is I might not ever know, and that's okay. And so now I get to decide, like, who I am and what feels right for me, and what I want to change when I want to change it, and what boundaries I get to set, and who I get to share my energy with, and what relationships I get to walk away from. It's all my decision. And that's the biggest piece with untaming yourself, is giving yourself permission to do whatever the fuck you want when you want to. And I'm not saying that in a break laws, break rules kind of thing. I'm just saying allowing yourself to truly play with what feels good in your body.
Absolutely. And so how is your life really different compared to 3 to 5 years ago? Like, you've had a really intense journey, and it's been, you know, full of a lot of healing. But how is your overall life compared to that time? You know, 3 to 5 years ago really isn't that long ago.
It's not. It is completely different. I would say, so I'm a USPA power lifter now, and I never thought I would have said that 5 years ago. And it's like the most masculine thing, but I never would have given myself permission for that, because I would have told myself that it wasn't feminine enough and I had to only be in my feminine body. And if I am like really honest, I've never felt more feminine than I do now, knowing how strong I am physically. So like that's
Amazing.
one thing. And I also like intertwine it. Like I dance between, you know, lifts at the gym. I'm like over twerking in the corner when I'm supposed to be resting. I now run my own business. I support people in them healing their nervous system and going on their own healing journey, and supporting them through that and transforming their own life. I love myself, and I was not able to say that 2 years ago at all. I am so incredibly ferociously protective of myself and my inner child now. And I couldn't even look at my inner child 2 years ago. I am in love with my body. And, you know, that's also like a lifelong journey. And it doesn't mean I don't have like days where I struggle with my body image, but overall, like, I love my curves. I love my body. I am thankful to my body for all that it's given me through. And honestly, the biggest piece from how I'm different now to how I was 2 to 3 years ago is I'm no longer angry at myself and all those versions that came before me, because I know that all of those versions of me were just coping and trying to survive. And I'm actually really grateful to her and all of them, because she didn't know any better. She didn't know any different until she chose different, until she could do different. And I am in a healthy relationship now that is safe and feels so good, and with a person who is also on their own journey. And so we get to like support one another in that. I walk away from friendships that don't serve me anymore, rather than clinging on to them and holding on to them because I'm afraid of abandonment. There's so many pieces to it, and it changes and shifts all the time. And I feel like I still go through rough patches where I'm like, this is really tough right now, but that's life. And I think that the biggest piece to untaming yourself and healing yourself is just understanding it's not about hard stuff not happening and traumatic stuff not happening and heartbreak not happening and pain not happening. It's about when it happens, allowing yourself to feel how you feel in the moment, honoring how you feel, and reacting to it in a way that feels good for you so that you can move through it rather than just existing off of coping.
Yeah. Fantastic. And so let's talk about your movement and your I guess you're untaming yourself with being able to move and being free within your body and your expression.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started a movement years ago. It was like probably 2011. I was living in LA, and I had an experience of an embodiment practice, and I actually became certified in it, and I love it. But it also like it's really shifted throughout the years. And so that was the first time that I had an experience of, oh, my body is mine. It's not for other people. It's mine. And even in that though, like I was still involved in so much that was still controlling me and controlling my body and controlling my life. And so stepping even out of that box of that specific type of training and that specific teaching modality, I just started putting on music and dancing and allowing my body and being like, okay, what does anger feel like in my body? I'm going to dance out anger, which is going to look completely different than what sadness, and how my body speaks sadness, and how my body speaks joy, and how my body speaks grief or resentment, or like all of these emotions that run through us. And so giving my body permission to speak it, because the body is what holds it, right? If we don't let the body speak, it's just, it gets stuck.
Yeah.
And so through movements, I've learned how to also flow in the rest of my life. If I can find flow in my body through these darker emotions or even these lighter emotions, then I can find flow in my life outside of that. And I dance to express joy. It is like I am the first one at a wedding. I'm the first one on the dance floor. I'm the last one off. Like I just love dancing. I've been dancing since I could walk. But movement, no two bodies, and specifically no two female bodies, are going to move in the same way, because every body has a story to tell. And once you invite your body to tell that story, what comes out might completely shock you. And it's all about embodiment, is about being in the body and embodying what it is that you're feeling, or embodying what it is that you want to feel. But you can't embody what you want to feel until you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling first, because you can't bypass the reality to get to a different reality, right? Totally. And so allowing your body to just express and take up space and take up time, and giving your hands permission to explore the curves and the canvas of your body that maybe you've never, and it's not even about sexuality. Yes, that's in there because we're inherently sexual beings, but it's about the sensuality, which when I speak of sensuality, I'm speaking of the senses, which is what sexuality means. So how your fingertips feel as they like get tangled in your hair, or, how your toes feel as you tickle them across your carpet while you're slowly moving through a movement, and really fully embodying into each breath and each moment and noticing how your body reacts, because that is the key to learning what feels safe and what feels good in your body.
Beautiful.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these guys are going to get access to the Creatress Rising app today, which is where all of our speakers have got some really beautiful content going on there. So Amrit, what are some of the things that we might find on your page inside of the Creatress Rising app?
So you're going to have access to a feminine embodiment practice, which is kind of what I was just speaking to. And it's going to be audio rather than video. And the reason why is because if I put a video of myself up moving, you're going to try and mimic my movement. And the whole point is for you to allow your body space to move in the way that it wants to move. And so I will be guiding you through, with my voice, a embodiment practice that's going to invite you to kind of step outside the box and allow yourself to get uncomfortable in order to get comfortable, if that makes any sense, because we kind of have to choose our discomfort when we're untaming, because untaming is real freaking uncomfortable, but it's less uncomfortable than the discomfort of staying stuck and staying small and staying inside of a box that doesn't even fit you anymore. And so that will be on there, which I'm super, super excited about, as well as I'm a certified EFT, which is the emotional freedom technique, or tapping practitioner. And it is one of my absolute favorite nervous system regulation tools. And it's a combination of traditional Chinese meridian points that you tap on combined with psychology. And so we use affirmation to basically rewire your brain and support your nervous system in believing that you can and you will step into this bigger container and this bigger form that you're meant to be in here in the world, because we're all meant to be big and bright and shining and at peace.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you today. And I really look forward to doing these feminine embodiment practices that you've got in there, and also the tapping, because I don't know about everybody else watching, but I know for me as an entrepreneur, as a mother, as a woman showing up and looking to create bigger and bigger containers, nervous system is such a thing that we really need to support and take care of, you know.
Yeah, it's the key. Your nervous system is it's our electricity board within our body. And so much of the work that I do is nervous system regulation, because so much of us have been walking through the world with a dysregulated nervous system. And until you find that baseline, you can't really learn what feels right and what feels wrong and what's in alignment with yourself, because if your nervous system's out of alignment, then you don't have that steady baseline to understand what feels right for you.
Your life then gets out of alignment.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right, guys. So jump inside the app. You should all have a free trial. Jump in the app and check out some of the beautiful work from Amit. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.